Hey guys, it's Aquarius, and I just want to make a video telling you guys about my chemo and my cancer and my radiation and my story of how I beat cancer. And first of all, it's it, it sounds a lot worse than it felt. I can tell you that I I I just kind of let it happen. I didn't care what anybody thought. I didn't I don't know, like like hope that it would end or wish that it would end. I kind of just dealt with it, and I know most people probably aren't like that. And if you have somebody that you know or love that has, well, cancer, then be sure to remind them that they're not alone and that they're gonna make it, and no matter what they do, to just keep fighting and keep fighting. That's the basis that I used when I was fighting, and it's just it's really hard. It's really hard. But anyway, let's start in October of last year. And what I want to say about this is last October I was getting sick a lot. And when I mean a lot, it was every day. I could hardly go to school. I I I mean, it was awful. And the people at my school thought I was just like not wanting to come to school. And I can see that how that would be something that you would consider because, well, I mean, kids don't like school. I mean, it's just like kids just don't like school, you know? And I love school. I love going to school. Not necessarily for the work, but just to talk to people and to get to know people and make friends and socialize. And then this happened, and it's like like your whole world just falls apart. And I mean, it's just super hard. And I kudos to anybody that has to do this multiple times in their life, because I know I'm gonna have a difficult time if it ever pops up again. And so I'm sorry, I'm getting too sidetracked. In last October, like I said, I was getting really sick. Kept going to the doctor, kept going to the doctor, kept going to the doctor. Never did anything. Never did anything. They just sent me off with some medication that said that it would help, and that was it. And then I went to like 4 of those doctors that just told me off, and then I finally went to my primary care doctor, and he ordered a CT scan, which showed that I had a tumor. And that doctor who called in that CT scan practically saved my life. Because if he hadn't have called in that scan, we wouldn't have found it nearly as fast. It would have taken at least like a few more months. And him calling in that scan was just, I can't thank him enough. And so I got it, and we waited 4 hours to get it, as you do. And that night, we were walking down the hallways, waiting for the results to come back. So we head back to the urgent care that we had checked into, sat down in the room, and they were like getting the person to go over our results. And I remember sitting there next to my dad, and they came in and told us, and it was just fear. I was so scared. And it's like, this is happening to me? Me? Why me? Of all people in the world, why does it have to be me? And it sucked. It wasn't fun. And sat in that room for 15 minutes probably, just like, well, we were just sitting there, just crying and doing what you do when you find out you have a fucking tumor. And we finally calmed down enough to go upstairs and get my room that we were going to be waiting in until the plane got there that would fly me to Denver that night. And I went up there, and I wanted to see my family, because it was only my dad there. And I asked for my sister, and I was like, can I see my sister? And she came, and we just hugged for like a few minutes, probably. It was, oh my god, it was bad. It just was such a, you never expect that. You never, ever expect that to happen. And the fact that it did was even more scary. And so that night we flew to Denver, and for that weekend, it was on a Friday that we found it. So that weekend I would be in the hospital. I'd be plugged up with IVs and all sorts of stuff. And then on Monday, I had my surgery. It went perfectly. Got it all out. And then I would spend that next week in the hospital waiting to go home. And when they finally were able to let me go home, they said they were going to fly us back, but they didn't. So we had to call up a car rental place and then have them drive us a car to the hospital so that we could drive home. And that was probably the most annoying part of that trip, honestly. And then once we got home, after a couple of weeks of just planning stuff out, we started on the chemo. And the chemo, for the first 6 weeks that I was having chemo, I was having vincristine. You guys aren't probably gonna understand this, but I was getting vincristine once a week. Then I was getting radiation every weekday. And the radiation was probably the hardest part of any of it, if I'm being completely honest, because it's like you're getting burned. It's like a sunburn on another level. It's like, it was bad. It left this big mark down my back, and it really screwed me up. And after the 6 weeks, we had a 6-week break. And during that 6-week break, still couldn't go to school. But I did feel a lot better. I was able to go out a lot more and do a lot more things and all that. And, yeah, and then, after that 6 weeks, we started back up again on just chemo. No radiation this time, just chemo. And then we, so what we would do is we would go in every 28 days for 4 days, and in the duration of those 4 days, we would get 3 chemos, and I would get vincristine, the one that I was getting before for the 6 weeks, except now I would be getting cisplatin, which is another type of chemo, and cyclophosphamide, which is another type of chemo. But at this point, my scans were already clear that I was cancer-free, but they wanted to make sure that none of the cancer cells had hidden away and just made themselves like look like they weren't there, but they still were, just so that they didn't come back and, well, I would have cancer again. And after that 6 months of every month going in, and then on top of that, every week I'd have to go in to get a blood check, and most of the time it was more than once a week, because my counts would always be low, and then I'd have to go in every 3 times a week. And I mean, I would never have hardly any free time. It was always just, oh, we gotta go to the hospital. Oh, we gotta go to the hospital. And it was the hardest thing that I've ever done, by far. And I know that seems obvious, but like I said, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, necessarily. I knew it was going to be hard, but, I mean, I'm sure it was as hard as I thought it would be, but it didn't feel that way. Like, I was just so desensitized to everything, I would just let it happen. And I guess that worked out in my favor, because, I mean, I'm not traumatized by it. I mean, I'm more like, I know it's weird to say, but I'm more glad that it happened than not, because going through it has made me such a better person as a person than I was before. I still have my sense of humor, I still have all of these things, but I'm just more mature, and I know how to handle stuff better than other people might handle things, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for everything. And anybody who supported me on my other video explaining this, thank you, and I really mean that, and because I read the comments on all my videos, and those people really helped. And just knowing that there was people out there that were supportive. I mean, I know I have my family, they're always supportive, but people outside of my family that are supportive and care, it's just, it means the world. And thank you guys for doing that, and that's pretty much where the story ends. Up until this point, it's pretty much all of it. So I think I'm gonna leave the video off there, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.